The following podcast is part of the MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network. Now streaming on Prime Video, The Kindness Within, A Journey to Freedom is a soul-stirring documentary exploring the universal quest for meaning, healing, and connection. A sequel to the beloved docuseries The Kindness Diaries on Netflix. It follows Leon Logothetis, known as the Kindness Guy, as he confronts personal pain and deeper truth and seeks spiritual awakening. Guided by Dr. Gabor Mate, Sadhguru, and Mike Dooley, learn how kindness can heal from within. Everyone's talking about microdosing, but it's more than a trend. It's a potential gateway to healing, growth, and self-awareness. Now comes the first comprehensive book on the subject, Microdosing for Health, Healing, and Enhanced Performance. James Fadiman and Jordan Gruber delve into the science, history, and real-world experiences behind this powerful practice. From improving health and focus to boosting creativity, they offer practical insights into how microdosing can support a balanced, mindful lifestyle. Find Microdosing wherever books and audiobooks are sold.
Wholeness means to me being in a state of joy.
Wholeness means feeling complete, owning my authentic gifts.
Wholeness is really connected. Everything is connected to everything.
Wholeness is where we have access to all parts of ourselves.
I like your hair today.
Thank you. I did. I was going creative today. And for those of you that can't see, you're just going to have to go to the library and pay the $5. I am also in my pajama top.
Oh, nice.
So, these are just for the insiders to get to see this. You have to pay $5 to see what I got going on today. But it's snowy. It's snowy. Snowy by you?
Oh, snowy. I think it snowed a foot here.
Yeah, I haven't even looked. I've just felt it. I don't think we got quite that much, but yeah. But yesterday it was so sunny. It was crazy.
I know.
Okay,
so put on yesterday.
Right? It was great. Okay, so I got this is the card deck Spirit Junkie.
Oh, cute.
And very creative. And the card, it doesn't really have anything that goes with it. It's just this card, but it says, I let the universe catch up with my dreams.
Wow. And that was an authentic pull?
Yeah, that was an authentic pull.
Love it.
I love it. I think that goes along with our introduction to the Creative Act, the book, The Creative Act. What did you think?
I liked it. For me, it was hard to read because I guess you could say it is probably more right-brained because it's not
very.
I was even trying to see if there's a logical way of how he wrote it. And there's some chapters that I would say kind of follow a little bit linearly like that. But no. And when I was reading on Amazon, someone said this could be a coffee table book, meaning you just pick it up and read a little bit and it would teach you something.
Yeah.
Which I think that is very valid. So reading it all at once is a little tricky for me. Was it for you?
Well, I was listening to it and you have to definitely turn the listening speed up a little bit, at least to get to for me to catch the stuff, I had to turn it up. But I agree, the chapters are super short. They're all kind of self-contained. So it would, like a chapter a day or whatever, especially if you're starting to create something, it'd be great to kind of keep this as your daily rituals to kind of read this book.
True. That's true.
But, I wanted to start out with one quote, and this will show you how this book is, because it is just quotes. I swear it's just quote, 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 quote. You could just take one quote out.
I have so much underlined in my book.
I know.
So much.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But so listen to this. I thought this was an interesting way to start was, as human beings, we come and go quickly, and we get to make works that stand as monuments of our time here, enduring affirmations of existence. Michelangelo's David, the first cave paintings, a child's finger paint landscape, they all echo the same human cry, like the graffiti scrawled in the bathroom stall, I was here. What I liked about that, I just kind of want to riff off of that for a minute because I love the way because if you read the whole book, the way he's putting Michelangelo's David and graffiti on the bathroom wall in the same sentence I feel like that's what this book is all about.
Right.
It's really about your art, your particular, who you are is art, and the thumbprint that you leave in the world is art, regardless of what it looks like.
And also that the art is itself too, because he makes that point too, is like, and one thing that Mechelle and I talked about is this book is full of contradiction. That something is a rule until it's not a rule.
Right.
And I don't know, if you notice that, but sometimes I'd be reading along like, yeah, I love this. Like that's a rule. And then he'd be like, but sometimes you have to do this. And I was like, oh, it's not a rule.
Didn't he talk about one of the artists that would just bring in like everyday things, put it on there and say it was art?
Yeah,
It's like
Andy Warhol, like the Brillo
yeah,
pads. I even
yeah,
looked it up and he basically what he did, and I thought maybe he designed the packaging for Brillo pads.
yeah, no.
No, he just copied it exactly, made little boxes and figured that people were just going to be so excited about them and nobody bought them.
But now they're worth
It
millions.
was yeah, probably. But it
Yeah.
was an expression and it was a
Right.
way of him of seeing the world. And, sometimes people love it, sometimes they don't.
Right. And I feel like from reading this book, it gave me courage to just say, I don't care what anybody else thinks. If it's art to me,
Yep.
I'm gonna say it so within me. And I don't know if I've ever been given quite the permission quote as this book kind of did, and that's from beginning to end. It's kind of that it takes you on a little trail to get to that point. I feel like.
I think
So
so. I think that that's a really valid point because there are some artists, they create content or they create art and it's caught on right away. For whatever reason, it's in the mainstream and everyone loves it. But there's countless examples of artists who did not receive fame until post-mortem, until they were gone. They worked really hard and probably like the suffering artist, like, isn't it
mhm.
Picasso that didn't have much fame during his lifetime?
I know Van Gogh was Van
Oh, Van
Gogh.
Gogh. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
It didn't
yeah.
have any until, he passed and people were like, wow, this is amazing.
And it's so funny you bring that up because I think it was his yellow period. So he has what's called the yellow period. We were in Chicago and got to see quite a few Van Goghs. And so there was this time where he just used a lot of yellow. And you can get into the history as far as what they used for paints and all that stuff. It wasn't just go grab your paint like today. They cultivated things and created their colors. But they say that I think it's his yellow phase where they look back and the medication he was on for his mental illness probably made him see things yellowy. So here it was his mental illness, and yet it's worth millions today. I'm like, could we just take that like metaphor into our lives, like about art? Like, even this thing that was unacceptable is now one of the things that makes him the greatest. And what if we thought of ourselves in that way?
Yeah.
And, it was fascinating. I didn't realize either. He did self-portraits over and over again. He took selfies. He painted
Yeah.
selfies again and again. I don't know if I realized that. I don't think I realized they weren't all the same painting until we got to see several in a row. And I just thought, isn't that interesting too, that himself was the thing that he painted over and over again. I just feel like we should take that into our lives somehow.
Yeah. One thing that kind of got me in this book, and I don't know if this is the time to talk about it, but there is a good chunk of time to be devoted to your craft.
Yeah.
And part of me, like, it exhausted me thinking about having to create something. There's some waiting periods sometimes. There's that pushing through of like going through and making something happen. And I think for me, I want the quick fix. I would love to just sit down in front of an easel. I don't know how to paint, so it wouldn't work anyway, but like, and paint something in half an hour. But really, like he said, sometimes that happens. Sometimes that quick thing happens. But I think like this whole book is dedicated to the idea too of also sometimes the act, like the title says, of doing that is where kind of the magic. It's not necessarily always the finished product.
Totally. So I have this quote this comes at the perfect time because I want you to think about this. I even wrote in my note. Ask Chalene what she thinks about this. So this is one of those. This is going to be a heavy, like I say, it's almost like scripture. The words are so like big and the sentences are long. But okay, but this is what you're thinking about. It says, in each moment, we are immersed in a field of undifferentiated matter from which our senses gather bits of information. The outside universe we perceive doesn't exist as such. Though a series of electrical and chemical reactions through a series of electrical and chemical reactions, we generate a reality internally. We create forests and oceans, warmth and cold. We read words, hear voices, and form interpretations. Then in an instant, we produce a response. All of this in a world of our own creation. And then, so pause there for a minute. This is a hugely key thing because like, for instance, where we're looking at each other right now, we're in the same space energetically, but our perceptions, what I'm seeing and what you're seeing, are totally different.
Yeah.
And the difference is that the only thing that makes us different is us. Our place in the world is the only thing that makes our perception different. And really the difference is it is a bunch of electrical and chemical stimuli in our body. It's in our brains. It's saying, I see this, that's this, I see blue behind you. It tells my brain to put it next to something that I know, so I'm really coloring my own world just looking at my own eyeballs because it's all in contrast and in comparison to what I already know. And so just walking around, you got to think about it. So although there is a long process to making the art, this I thought was really vital, is just if you can just change your thinking to that, just by you looking out your eyeballs, you're creating the art, you're in the process. So, and then he goes on to say, regardless of whether or not you're formally making art, we are all living artists. We perceive, filter, and collect data, then curate an experience for ourselves and others based on this information set. Whether we do this consciously or unconsciously, by the mere fact of being alive, we are active participants in the ongoing process of creation.
Wow. Yeah, so we're doing it every day. We're doing it right now.
Yeah, the process is always going, because in this conversation, I am reflecting on what I had before and creating something new. But nothing's really totally new, and yet it's new at the same time, like you say, the contradiction, right? Like,
Yeah.
I haven't ever not said these words before, but maybe not in this formation. Like, it's a true paradox. Art is a true paradox. I think that's what he was trying to kind of get through a little bit in a few of his things.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember the part in the book where he talked about, and I tried to find it and I couldn't find it, but it was talking about copying, or like someone's already done it and then you're doing it in your own version. Do you remember that part?
Yeah, I do remember that part.
Okay, if you find it, let me know because I want to share it with somebody. But
yeah,
I thought that that's really interesting. I think my Enneagram 4 really comes and like bites me in the butt sometimes, because it's like, no, you have to be novel. You have to be different. You can't be piggybacking on someone else's stuff or it's not going to count. But what he was saying, and what you're saying too, is like, I have my own way of seeing it. Even if it's been done before, the little bit that I change makes it my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's kind of like that idea with copyright, isn't it? Like if you change it 10%, it becomes your own. And you don't.
I think so. Something like that. I mean, and that's something. So that reminds me of, there was a special part, and I took note because I thought it was important. I went along right with this, but it was the chapter called The Sincerity Dilemma. Most artists overvalue sincerity. They strive to create art that expresses their truth, the truest versions of themselves. Sincerity, however, is an elusive characteristic. It is different from other goals we may have. Where greatness is a target worthy of our aim, setting our sights on sincerity may be counterproductive. The more we stretch to reach it, the farther away it recedes. When a work presents itself as sincere, it can be seen as saccharine, sweetness made small, a hollow rhyme in a greeting card. In art, sincerity is a byproduct. It cannot be the primary aim. I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's like this idea of, I mean, he's calling it here sincerity, but like just that this is only me, this is only my authentic piece isn't the goal.
Right.
Because in the idea of everybody's a creator, then everybody is included in your creating your creation, right? Like, and so it's just a different way. I just like the way he shifted that up for me.
Well,
like,
listen to this poem after, like right after. So he does it in an interesting way. Most books I felt like I've read, the poetry goes before the chapter.
Yeah.
But in this one, the poetry, and I didn't realize it till halfway through the book because I was like, wait, I thought this was going to tell me what I was going to be reading, but it was telling me what I just read.
Yep.
But he says, anything that allows the audience to access how you see the world is accurate, even if the information is wrong.
Yes. That was huge. I totally, yeah, rewound that like 3 times. Isn't that crazy? Because it's art. That's the
Right.
whole idea of art. It's supposed to be your perspective.
And there's no right or wrong in it. I can really I would really like to access that in my life. That there's like that, not that right or wrong. It's just art. And maybe you can even look at, does he talk about agency in this book? I thought I heard him say something
Maybe,
about
yeah,
agency. But just the idea that like agency is creation,
yeah,
correct? Like, so any
right,
choices we make is just an act of creation. It's not a definitive characteristic of our identity. It's
yeah,
just an artistic expression.
yeah. Think about what are those books that like Jen Butler's book is? You called it. What did you call it? It's like a pick your own ending.
Oh, choose your own adventure.
Yeah, choose your own adventure. I mean, that is agency. Choose your own adventure. If you go on this adventure, you're going to get this story. If you go on this adventure, you're going to get that story. Both of them are stories, or both of them are entertaining. Both of them are valuable.
Yeah,
You
both of
know,
them are
like
creation.
both of them are creation. And that is, I don't, I don't know if there's a wrong creation. You know what I mean? Because creation is so personal. It's so special, right? Like it's so special. So if we could think about that as like, yeah, that's what that's the, and to believe that as creativity, you know what I mean? Then you kind of get out of like right or wrong,
Can that
best,
completely
worst,
eliminate shame? Like,
right?
if you're like, no, I just chose something, I tried it, like,
Yeah, wasn't
I'm
my,
not bad. I
yeah,
mean,
wasn't my
really,
best,
if I could
right?
look at it that way all the time, that'd be
Right.
amazing.
I mean, that's why, like, so, I did a little thing different to my hair and I was like, I don't even know if this is going to work. But I thought, you know what? This was what I created today. I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
with it. And, and, and it does, it takes the shame away, like it's just, hey, it's creative.
Yeah.
It's
Like, have
creative.
you ever, do you know who Betsy Johnson is?
Yeah. The
Have you ever looked at
designer.
her hair? Like, it's always so crazy, and yet it's always amazing. And
Yeah.
I think, I can't imagine waking up one morning being like, I think I'm just gonna have my hair like stick out like that. But I love that she does, and she can carry it off, especially with how she dresses. But like, I would love to get to that point where it was like, I don't know, I tried this.
Right. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see how it goes. One of the other major things about this book is this really, and it kind of came up over and over again, was the idea that these ideas are already out there in the world and you're just picking them up. You're just a vessel, right?
The
And
seeds, right? Is that what?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And he says we are all participating in a larger creative act. We are not conducting. We are being conducted. The artist on the artist is on a cosmic timetable, just like all of nature. If you have an idea you're excited about and you don't bring it to life, it's not uncommon for the idea to find its voice through another maker. This isn't because the other artist stole your idea. It's because the idea's time has come.
Wow. I think
And
that's very true. Because have you ever had ideas and then someone else has done it?
all the time,
Yeah.
all the time, all the time. And I love the idea of the ideas. I don't know. The way I would say it is like they almost have, we can call it their energy, but they almost have a life of their own. They are an expression.
Yes, in
They,
Big Magic, which we're gonna read, but
yeah,
she talks about ideas as being sentient beings,
yeah,
almost.
right,
Like they have, like you said, like an almost a life to them.
yeah. I know a while back I had and I'll have to try and remember this experience because it was like one of those, I wonder if that's the case, but it's going to take me much longer to explain it. But it was just this feeling of like, okay, I mean, if you put together the idea of like evolution and the idea of reincarnation and the idea of agency, right? It's like if something, if becoming my human beingness, now I'm not saying this is the way it is, but becoming my human beingness, let's say I what if I had to start out as a thought and maybe then a feeling, and then like
Mhm.
and even this the way it came into my mind because at the time me and my husband were struggling in our relationship and it was the thing that came in was like this relationship has a conscious of its own as if it was and so sometimes people's relationships die, right, and then
Mhm.
it's on to its next higher creation, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it sounds so strange, but it was just like the same kind of thing where it was like maybe things that are real but not tangible. Maybe they're just in their different state of their evolution, or maybe their different state of progression, or whatever. Or, I don't know, but it was just an interesting thought that when I read this book, I'm like, I know what you're talking about. And I read Mid-Magnet too. It's like, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's just these things where, and so I kind of had to look at my relationship. I started to kind of look at it through that lens of it being its own, having it needing to fulfill its measure, the measure of its creation. Like it's like that relationship is there. It wants to, it has a plan. It chose what it wants to do. I mean, I'm telling you, this is really woo. Maybe this should be in the woo
This
section.
is the woo. Yeah, there's a lot of woo in this book.
There's a lot of woo in this book, but it's just, I don't know. I just think there's just so much support and help that it almost seems like there's got to just be, everybody's got to be on board. Like even our ideas, even our desires, like that they are, there can be their own kind of entities. I don't know how it works, but that's what this book really, really kind of pushed, is this idea that they're alive.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you think about a garden, an actual planting situation, sometimes where it lands isn't where it's going to grow. And I don't know that the idea ever dies. I don't know. That would be an interesting idea of like the seed dies. Because I'm thinking about that story in the Bible, where like they scatter the seeds and some grow and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they probably just get carried off in the wind and find somewhere else.
That's right.
To grow.
Yeah, I think
that's not the place.
Right. I think and that's what I think that story is saying, is it wasn't the seeds issue. It was that the ground wasn't fertile.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the same as like, I might have an idea and I'm like, oh, that's an idea, but I don't put any effort into it. Then it moves on to somebody that will, it finds that fertile ground to grow.
Right.
And sometimes we can sprout it, and then and then it goes away from us, and other people make it into the beautiful plant that it is.
Yeah.
So, but that teamwork, I think, is a good place to kind of that's another way of wholeness, oneness, that we're all working together. We're all in this together. And in fact, one of the things that they talked about, so the first half of the book, I think, is all about, like, it's just, like if you were going to go and hang out in like Bali for a month, you would probably hear lots of things from this book, in that first half of the book. It's just more like, and his voice, if you listen to it, he's got this deep voice. I mean, it's like the voice of God right to your soul. It's like it, which is why I had to speed it up a little bit. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it is. It's very calming. It's a very calming voice. So yeah,
very calming voice. But he talks about in there this idea of, so now we're going into, when you have something that you're trying to create. So didn't you have a list of different jobs, different things that are creative, like if outside the box, right? We think of sculptor, painter, writer, music person.
Yeah, something that would create something tangible, like that you could put in a museum or like that. But yeah, here's some lists. So an architect, a web designer, obviously an artist or a graphic artist, like an industrial designer, interior designer, decorator. I mean, I think about people that can know where to put stuff on a wall is amazing to me.
Yeah.
A video game developer, someone who does like social media marketing or even any marketing or any public relations. I think about my husband who does that for a job. I'm like, yeah, he's always being creative. He's always thinking of new ways to get somebody to think about his product, like that's kind of cool. Like a director, a film director, or anybody that's doing anything with a movie. Like you think about all
editing.
Of those
All of it.
You remember like in The Holiday when she was the the editor, and she was trying to
create the trailers.
Yeah,
that
was really creative to get somebody to watch that movie. You have to put the right stuff in there.
Even to like, let's change that red to this red. Like she just changed the hue of the red,
right?
Try and convey a message. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. Totally.
I thought about a comedian, like thinking about what they're going to say on stage. Like that's really creative. Or like Nate Bargatze, when he can look at the world a certain way and the way he delivers it is like gold.
Yeah.
I could listen to him for hours.
He was funny. He came to my husband's Christmas party like a couple years ago.
Oh, he did?
It was so funny. He's just funny. He is so funny.
He is. He just sees the world in a different, like, it's not even in a different way.
It's like innocent. It's like he just points it out.
Yeah.
Things that we just kind of go
He tells
over
the
it.
truth.
Yeah, he tells the truth. You're right. Authentic.
A cartoonist, which is also an artist, a content creator, which I think about. We have to do social media posts sometimes, and that takes a lot of creativity. And a lot of
Does.
times those seeds are elusive to me.
Right.
Oh boy.
Anybody want to help us out there?
Yeah, no
Yeah,
kidding.
totally. It's just not our zone of genius, right? It's like,
No,
but I'd love
no.
it.
Yeah.
Every time
Journalism.
I
Oh, go ahead.
journalism, every time I eat a yummy, like, you know, chicken korma with a naan, I just think of that little, mama at her stove with all her spices, layering those flavors together like a cook or a baker. Like that's art.
Do you ever think of who decided to take an egg, crack it open, take half of it out,
Yep,
whip
yep,
it
yep.
together? All of
Yeah,
a sudden it got fluffy. Oh, put sugar with it and bake it, and it turns into like a meringue. Like, who thought of that? Or
right?
that an egg yolk mixed with flour and sugar can make a pudding, like and
Right.
thickens. Genius. That had to have been
Genius.
creativity. I
Totally.
I don't know. It blows my mind when I think about stuff like that. Like, who thought of that?
Right. It'd
Those
be
seeds.
interesting to know, like, literally how many ingredients there are. There's a kind of a finite amount of ingredients, but like an infinite amount of recipes.
Yes, I think of that with music sometimes. Like when I'm getting into I don't know. It's like those thoughts before you go to sleep.
Yes.
It was like there's only 8 notes in a scale,
Mm,
and like they just keep repeating over and over again. Are we ever going to run out of music?
right.
There's no way we would ever run out. But like that's eight, eight,
Hmm.
8 notes. That's
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time you're thinking about, again, creating something, you're going to use the same 8 notes. You know what I mean? So that's how we can kind of cut away from the fact that, yeah, we're not going to copy someone else, but there's no way we're not going to use the same notes as someone else. There's just no way. We're just
Yeah.
going to put it together differently. Just like this, somebody's going to read this, listen to this podcast. They're not going to read that's not going to give them the book, right? We're not copying the book, but we're taking his book and being creative with it and telling it in
Yeah.
different ways, right? So yeah, podcaster, there's another creative.
Podcasters.
Oh.
I have like authors, event
Hmm.
planners, teachers, city planners.
Yes.
Like I even thought about people that design the spaghetti bowls, in big
Yeah,
cities.
yeah, yeah.
What the crap? How do you do that? I don't even know. Um,
Right.
Healthcare and healers, like you think about how it's evolved over time. That was creativity. Like, oh, let's stick a leech on somebody. Maybe
Yeah,
they'll cure them. I
right.
don't know.
Yeah, you had to be creative the first time. In
Yeah.
fact, my kids work in the surgery, and they were saying the other day they were stuck because they were doing a knee replacement. And when they opened up the knee, half the bone was gone. And so it took like 3 hours. They were like consulting over how to give this person a knee. And so and they created, by the end of that, they created a new way of doing a knee replacement right there
Oh
as they
my
were just
gosh.
in the surgery room. Like you have to be creative a lot to be a surgeon, especially.
Yeah. And that's amazing. Like I even
Mhm.
think about, I remember Grey's Anatomy when they were trying to like 3D print parts and
Yes.
stuff like that. That's incredible. I think about herbs and oils
Mm,
and how I'm sure there were some deaths along the way.
yeah,
Oh, that
totally.
drug was bad. Okay, sorry. Let's
Right.
try this other one. But the information that we have now because of that experimentation, that creativity of like, let's put this and this together,
Hmm.
I think is really cool. So a cook and a chef going along with that. Like, who thought of Diet Coke? I don't know, but I'm really grateful.
Right. We love them. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's see, like fiber artists, like
Mm,
crocheting,
yes. That's a good.
knitting.
Yeah. Seamstresses. Yeah.
Yes. I even thought about going into a retail store and knowing where to put things,
Mm,
how to make stuff look good, or how
yeah.
to place certain things certain places so people will be able to find them.
Hmm.
Um, Fashion designers, even like a quilter,
Mm,
just putting some of those things together. And I read a book one time, a book series about quilters and how the art has evolved and how it tells stories of the family history and
yep.
how different parts of the world have different kinds of quilting techniques. And I don't know, just
It's
so
pure art. It really is.
yes.
Yes.
I thought of like a set designer, a florist,
Mm,
jeweler, a glass blower, a tattoo
yes.
artist, a makeup artist, dancers and
Totally.
actors, musicians, somebody that's like thinking of classes to do at like a community rec center.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there's a class and I'm like, I didn't even know someone would need that, but like that's
Yes.
cool. And I thought of, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos of retirement center directors, how they just do the funnest activities with like yoga balls and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, like that is creative.
Creative. Yeah.
Love that.
Parenting, got to be creative when it's parenting, when you're a parent, right? Like that takes, whether you
Yes,
like it or not, you're created. Yeah.
that's so true.
So true. Well, in the book, so we're going to go into lots of woo-woo stuff in the next episode, but in the first half of the book, it's really kind of this, or the last half of the book, it's kind of like this how-to. So I kind of wanted to touch on some of these things so if you're creating something, whether like all of those things we just said, most likely you have one or more of those in your life, right? So, but let's say you wanted to make something, you really wanted to create something. So, and we're always trying to create things. And so some of the things he gave, the advice that he gave is, one of them was the importance of play.
Mm,
And um, he says, take art seriously without going about it in a serious way. Seriousness saddles the work with a burden. It misses the playful side of being human, the chaotic exuberance of being present in the world, the lightness of pure enjoyment for enjoyment's sake. In play, there are no stakes, no boundaries, no right or wrong, no quotas for productivity. It is an uninhibited state where your spirit can run free. The best ideas arise most often and easily through this relaxed state.
wow, that's cool. I agree with that. I
Hmm.
was thinking about how play evolves in a child. Do you know the stages of play
No,
in a
teach
kid?
us.
So the first is like independent play. So you're totally unaware of what anything that's going around you. That's a really good state to be in sometimes in play. The
Hmm.
next step is parallel play. So you're playing with the same things, but you're not really paying attention to what the other person's doing. And then the last one is cooperative play. So when
Mm-hmm.
you're looking, like, let's think about we're playing with an idea. So at first you're kind of doing your own thing. The idea is kind of doing its own thing. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you're kind of next to each other. You're kind of playing with the same things. You're noticing each other, but you're not really playing together. And then that last one is like you are synergized. You're making rules together. You're making plans. Like I love that idea of playing. So important.
Yeah, those are such good ideas. I never thought of that. I didn't know that. Thanks for teaching me. I think that is so great. And it goes into another one of the things is to talk about cooperation with others,
Oh,
cooperating. And um, he says specifically, there's a couple of quotes here. One is cooperation is not to be mistaken for competition. It is not a power struggle to get your way or be proven right. Competition serves the ego. Cooperation supports the highest outcome. Think of cooperation as giving or getting a boost to see over a high wall. There's no power struggle in this act. You are simply finding the best route to a new perspective. Um, which
yes.
I'm like, that's what we're trying to do with experts. If you're an expert, reach out to us. We're trying to cooperate with you to get your message out into the world. um,
Yeah.
and I felt like, it's really a place you can just stand into. If it feels uncomfortable, there's healing that needs to happen. That ego has some healing to do. We use our ego. We're using our ego right now. I tell you what, to be on this thing, to be talking here right now. It's not like we can get rid of our ego, but if it feels like you're in competition, um, there's some healing that needs to be done there.
Do you
But
feel like that shuts down creativity? I feel like for
yeah,
me it
it
does.
does. Because I'll just be like, never mind, you win. You know what I mean? I just don't want to compete. I don't like to compete.
Yeah.
To a fault, probably. To a fault, I
But I think
think.
even I've looked at myself too of like I don't like to compete, but by me withdrawing, I'm still kind of competing from it.
Right,
You know what
right,
I
right.
mean?
Totally. Yes, you're right. You're right. I really like what he said to do, because what do you do when you are cooperating? You still have two, like we still have two different perspectives. So I really liked this idea. He said, if one collaborator likes choice A and another prefers choice B, then the solution is not to choose A or B. It is to keep working until a choice C is developed that both artists feel is superior. Choice C may incorporate elements of A, of B, of both, or neither. The moment one collaborator gives in and settles on a less preferential option for the sake of moving forward, everyone loses. Great decisions aren't made in a spirit of sacrifice. They're made by the mutual recognition of the best solution available. And
Wow.
I think, one thing I mean, that's important. Like when I read that, like I might say, I might be one that settles just to go on, you know what I mean? But it's like, or you might be the one that's like, no, we're pushing it until it's my way, you know, but both of those, they don't send good energy to your project. And so I love the idea of, you gotta, what feels good to you, stand up. And then if both, stand up for yourself. And then if you or the group that you're collaborating with, if both of you have that idea, then you do come to that option C. And then I think it's better for it, right?
Yeah, and maybe you could look at it as the idea or the project is its own entity in that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're removing yourself from that idea and saying like, what's best for this project? It's not me and it's not you, it's the
Mm-hmm.
project. What can we add to that? Instead of, I think we do wrap our identity a lot around some of our creative ideas and we
Totally.
just hold so close and then that creativity kind of starts to like disappear.
Yeah. And in my notes, I even put, think of these things. This stuff's good advice for relationships, just in
Oh.
relationships. It's like, and here's another thing he talked about where think about this as well as in relationships. Communication is the core of skillful cooperation. When giving feedback, don't make it personal. Always comment on the work itself, not the individual who made it. If a participant takes a critique personally, they tend to shut down. So be as specific as possible with your feedback. Zoom in to discuss the details of what you're seeing and feeling. The more clinical the feedback, the better it will be received. Saying, I think the colors in these two areas don't interact well together is more helpful than I don't like the colors.
Wow.
So it's really getting into the detail. Well, maybe if we just move this over here because it's interrupting. And I feel like one of the things that you've got to do is enable to be able to do that is to really get clear on what's going on inside because we kind of live at that surface area sometimes. We usually say I just don't like that, but it's like let's go in and see exactly what we don't like,
Hmm.
and get really in tune with that. So I think that was really good advice if you're creating with someone. I think that to me that was gold. Like, yeah, if you're creating with someone, that's a perfect way, or in your relationship with someone, that's a perfect way to kind of move forward, to kind of find that choice C.
Yeah, or even if someone asks you to look at their art, that's a really great way of doing it instead of saying like, I don't know why you did that. That's not
Right.
helpful.
Right.
And just like putting that person first and recognizing that they have their own,
Mm-hmm.
that was their baby.
Right.
We're going to talk about, some of the aspects of the art rather than talk about you.
Yes. One of the things I really loved, confirmation bias, the thing that I loved about this book is um, because I would, in past, working with other different people, it was like we would create something like a class or a book or something, and you would give it off to somebody and you pass it out. Hey, what do you think about these? What do you think about these things? And I never really liked critiquing it too much because it was like, I'll look at this. I'll look at like the grammar, maybe, like if this
Mhm.
part doesn't make sense, like maybe I'll think about it. But as far as, I mean, I remember talking to someone one time and it was like, if it's like, do you like this outfit? To me, it doesn't matter if someone else likes it. It doesn't matter if I like it. You put it together, you put it on your body. That's it. Like, it doesn't matter if it works for me, And so I've always been struggling with like I don't get that, and it's women will do that all the time. I think they're looking for you know
They're
some
looking for a self-esteem hit, I think usually.
yeah,
It's
they're
not
looking for
about,
self-esteem,
they're
but the
not.
thing is, yeah, but the thing is sometimes the women don't give it. They do critique it. Well, maybe you could do this, and I'm like, girls, that's why that doesn't work.
You know what? I really like that because I came up with an idea one time and it was like really exciting. I think it was I was going to do like a video series on recipes that related to a book that I was reading, like a book club or something
Yep.
like that with recipes. And I presented it to my friends and I was really excited about it. And they were like, well, what if you did this one? I think it would be really good if you did this. And
Right.
it just like made me feel
Yeah.
like my idea was dumb or
Right.
like it didn't have any value. Like I think they probably thought they were valuing my idea, but I was like, no,
Right.
your idea is not my idea. That is a
Right.
different idea.
Right.
And I don't know if I should be more careful sometimes with those ideas or if I should just say like you can say whatever you want. It doesn't change my idea. But it did. It did
Right.
affect how I do that. So I think the advice going forward is from the other side of the table, when
Yeah.
someone presents you an idea, be excited about it. Let
Tell
them handle the
Yeah.
details.
Right. If you don't understand it, say, tell me more, help me out.
Yeah.
But they don't need you, yeah, and I feel like that happens too much, too much for people. They're like, you put forth something and they like cut it to
Yes.
pieces, and it's like, that's just not helpful to me.
No.
It just takes this wind out of the sails. It really,
It
really does.
did. Yes.
Yeah, it does. And I don't know if that's on you to not let it bother you. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to get that back once that's been, so like you say, it's for the lesson is for the other side. When somebody brings you their thing, I mean, I trust too that, like, first of all, everybody's individual. It's going to speak to someone. And also, it's going to evolve on its own. You know what I mean? Things are going to shift on their own. Trust, like, if you hand me a piece of your art, I'm going to trust that it's going to do what it needs to do. And if it falls apart and you don't want to do it anymore, it just goes away. It goes back to the universe or to someone else. Like, if we could trust not only the artist, but the art, we don't need to mess with that part. We don't need to critique that part, because we're all artists and everything we do is art. So we don't really need to critique it, right?
Is that the lesson, that we are all artists and everything we do is art?
I think out of this book, that's what it feels like
I think
to me.
you nailed it.
Yeah, that's it.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number 1 contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Well, also they talk about he talks about when we get stuck in art. And I just thought this was important to talk about, but it's like, just when we're stuck or we feel like we can't, we're like, we don't know how to move forward in this project. I thought he gave some good advice about looking from another perspective. He said, when a piece isn't living up to your expectations, consider changing the context. Look past the principal element, examine the variables around it, play with different combinations, place it next to other works, surprise yourself. A few common options are soft or loud, fast or slow, high, low, close, far, bright, dark, large, small, curved, straight, rough, smooth, before, after, inside out, same, different. It's like whenever you get stuck, let's say if you're like, for me, I'm, a lot of times creating a class or whatever. If I get stuck, it's like, okay, what if we just, whatever topic I'm on, let's look at what the opposite topic is and look at that for a minute, or just a way of just trying to get through these kind of bumps. My son is in his last semester of creative art or creative writing. And sometimes, he'll get so stuck and it's like, and I love this part. Like, I'm trying to get him to read it because he talks about too, he's like, just skip over that part and then finish this part, then you can go back to it. Go over here. Like, if you're stuck, do something else. Don't just sit and bang your head against a wall. Don't ever think that you're not an artist, right? Just find the places that you can do the art. And maybe it's easier to go back and fill in those spaces. But I thought that was good advice, because too often I think that happens. You're just like, I don't know what to do, stuck. And that can bring the wind out of your sails as well.
I think so. I liked too how he talked about how, and I think he said it in this way of like, everybody's source of creativity is like nature. Did you remember that part? It was something about like nature can kind of inspire everyone. Mm-hmm. And So, you know, when you're in that spot, like, yeah, maybe take a break and go out into nature and do something to
Yes.
kind of retain some of that creative. And maybe it's not going to go back to that exact point that
Right.
you're having a problem with, but maybe that'll spur you on to say like, oh, let's finish this part, or let me go
Yep.
back and edit that part.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what over and over again, it was just like, try this, try that. Kind of also like this happens to everybody. You know,
Yeah.
I remember I've always loved Celine Dion since her first album when she hardly spoke any English, like when I was in
Okay.
high school. And, you know, she has this amazing voice. I went and saw her in Vegas a couple of times. And one year my husband gave me this boxed set of one of her albums. And in it was it was like her recording the album. And I'm telling you, it blew my mind how like she made a mistake, you know, where they said, let's actually do it this way. Okay. And they do it over and over again. And it was just one of those things where it was like, in my mind, I thought, you know, I just pictured she did it perfectly. You know what I mean? Like she just
You
went in
show
there
up, put the headphones on, sing the song,
and,
and
and it's like, you know, why did we think that? Why do we think that other people just do their art? Even this person who's, you know, very famous made mistakes. You know, there's also an interview with Billie Eilish on Netflix. I think it's the David Letterman interviewed her. Such an amazing interview because he shows you it's her and her brother, and they're in this room where they create music. And she says, look up on the board. And I don't know, you know, editing. She's like, see all those splits? Those are all edits. I didn't sing the song all the way through. You know, and she's like, you could do it like I do. Like this is how it goes. Like it's not what you think.
yeah.
You know, I'm not singing the whole song perfectly. And it was crazy to see all the edits there. He's like, see, I would go there, see there, I went a long time there. We had to stop it, you know, and do the next thing. And I want to try that sometime. I just think that would be fascinating. You know, it's like again, going back to like the sincerity of it. If she's looking to show that her voice can last the whole song, if that's her goal, then maybe the song's not as good. What she wants is the song to be good, and then that sincerity or like the authenticity of it, it's her, but it's not like her goal is the art, right? It's not her quality, her abilities. It's like the creation of art. And sometimes, you know, all artists make mistakes. So
you can even look at Garth Brooks when he did his, what was it, Chris? When Garth Brooks did his like emo album. Do you remember that?
No. Do I know
What?
that? Do I remember that? It
Yeah,
didn't work.
he had like a pseudonym like Chris something.
Oh,
and
I didn't
like
know
this
that.
whole album, like that was a creative act. He
That's
tried
right.
something new. I don't know that anybody loved it. I don't.
Right.
But like he got to try something different.
Right.
And that's part of, like you said, it's the art is for the artist and it's for the creation and it's for the people that listen to it. Like everybody benefits from that. I don't know that you could say you could pick one. You can't really create a hierarchy with it. What I think is a lot of this book was talking about, and maybe that's just because I've been thinking about hierarchies a lot in life and how we set them up.
Totally.
But he didn't really create a hierarchy as like, okay, well, the artist is the most important. No. Well, the art is the most important. Well, then, but he also said that the artist was important. Like everything kind of had their own importance and they were all like on their separate levels.
They don't need to compare.
No.
You know, they're in their own sphere. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, the last thing I thought was really interesting about getting through the creative process is self-doubt, right? The idea that we all have self-doubt, going back to the mistake making. And he says, while we wish it may be gone, it is there to serve us. Flaws are human, and the attraction of art is the humanity held in it. If we were machine-like, the art wouldn't resonate. It would be soulless. With life comes pain, insecurity, and fear. We're all different and we're all imperfect, and the imperfections are what makes each of us and our work interesting. We create pieces of reflection. We create pieces of reflective of who we are, and if insecurity is part of who we are, then our work will have a greater degree of truth as it is as a result. The making of art is not a competitive act. Our work is representative of the self. Legendary figures in art and history are sometimes held up as deities. It is counterproductive to measure ourselves against them because they never existed as such. They are beings with typical human vulnerabilities and flaws just like us. Each artist works with their own balance of strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's true. Like, you've got this is dating me, but Mariah Carey, remember, she used to have that high note, right? That high note. Is she a better singer than like Miley Cyrus, who has a deep voice? It's like, well, you get to choose as the listener. That's another part of your art, is which one you prefer, right? That's how you engage with the art. But if you start to decide one's better than the next, and then you have to make a full on decision for everybody, there's just no way. That's just, we don't even, that's just like not even a priority. Like, it's like, no. And so if we can kind of think about that for ourselves, really see ourselves as that artist presenting things out. And as we see it, as we're seeing or listening or inventing ourselves, that we are in that creative process. I think that's what this book is so special. Again and again, you are the art and the artist.
Yeah. And I like, well, when you're talking about self-doubt, though, I think a lot of artists worry that no one's going to care about what they're doing, or no one's going to like it. And it's just like anything you do in life.
Mm-hmm.
I can create a dinner and half my family's going to like it and half my family's not, but it doesn't mean I should create it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's nourishing for everybody. It's nourishing in the act of doing it. It's nourishing in the eating of it. It's nourishing, all over. And so if I were to just be upset about every dish that I make and just so worried about it, then I'm not fully in my creation mode anyway.
Right. If I'm just doing it for the reception of it, then I'm not really an artist. No. I'm just wanting the praise. You know what I mean? The artist is in the one that's the creative part. That's the artistic part. It's not it doesn't matter how it's taken. Right. So
we can always just remember that. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right. And even if I, I think that's a perfect example. If I make a meal and half my people don't like it, half my kids don't like it or whatever, I think that's even another way to think of the art. Is it's like, okay, even that way that they didn't like it and how that affects me is if you put that into some kind of, if you could really kind of draw that, or you could get that message across in some artistic way. And so therefore it's magical. Even that is art, its own kind of art.
Yeah. We hope you stay tuned, because next is Karen Crawford, our resident astrologer, and she's going to give us an update for March 2025. And she said it's a long one because there's a lot going on in March. She said April will be slower, so pay attention. There's a lot coming up.
Hello, welcome everyone to the March forecast for 2025. And I would like to share my screen and we will get going. And so today we're going to be talking about what is coming up for us. And I have to say March is a very exciting month. So we have Venus going retrograde March 1st. We also have a total lunar eclipse kicking off our eclipse season. And with Venus going retrograde, we then have Mercury going retrograde just 2 weeks later, which will be interesting. And we also have the start of Aries season with the sun ingressing into Aries. And we also have Neptune moving into Aries at the end of the month. So we're going to go into depth with some of these different astrological happenings. So the magic of Venus. Venus has a beautiful orbit, and she has a pattern every 8 years. She makes this beautiful rose pattern in the sky. And we're going to talk more about Venus and her magic in a different podcast, perhaps in the future with this. And every 2 years or so, she goes retrograde. And whenever Venus goes retrograde, we can kind of revisit, rethink, reflect on our relationships, just as a basic kind of way to approach it. Moving into the lunar eclipses. So we have a full moon total lunar eclipse March 14th. Backing up a smidge, in 2023, we finished the last of the Aries Libra axis eclipses, although we do have the solar eclipse coming up in March, which will complete the entirety of those eclipses, because the nodes move about every 18 months. And so that shifts the way the eclipse falls, depending where the nodes are, because the nodes are the orbital path of the moon, the ecliptic of the moon, when it's crossing the ecliptical apparent path of the sun around the earth, because we know the earth goes around the sun, but from our perspective, the sun goes around us. So when the nodes and the nodes are when the moon's ecliptic path crosses the sun's ecliptic path, apparent path of the sun. With Aries and Libra, we were talking about themes of enlightened selfishness, evaluating your involvement with others and kind of making sure that you aren't pleasing people to excess, that you can advocate for yourself. We can talk about cooperative leadership with that. And then independence versus connection. So we're shifting, the nodes shifted in January into Pisces and Virgo. And so about 2 weeks before the actual eclipse, we enter into the portal. So basically March 1st or so, we will be entering into the portal. And the full moon eclipse is interesting because it's taking place at 23 degrees Virgo. And we talked about Venus going retrograde the beginning of the month, March 1st. It's interesting because Venus is going to go direct on this exact degree, 23 degrees Virgo. I'm sorry, 23 degrees Pisces in April. So that's going to be interesting. And we want to kind of see, the last eclipse we had was in September of 2024. So there was something that can be evolving over your life over these past 6 months. Lunar eclipses are felt to be something more internal, something more kind of hidden or more emotional that we might experience. And because it's something might be falling away from you. And if it's falling away from you, the advice is just let it go. It's probably not meant to be in your life anymore, and that's okay. We talk about old stories around the South Node and kind of letting those things go. So if you're aware of Marie Kondo, she would hold things up and say, does this bring you joy? Thinking about lunar eclipses, you're releasing something, holding things up in your life and saying, does this really bring me joy? And I think it's really a great time because with the South Node being in Virgo, this is the most discerning sign. We think about separating the wheat from the chaff. We edit things so that they're perfect. We have a system of organization that makes sense to us. It's a very grounded and earthy sign, even though it is mutable, which means there's some flexibility there. So the time of culmination is when we have full moons or lunar eclipses. And so we're letting go of things we've outgrown. And we can kind of think about eclipses are like when the light gets turned off and turned back on, things shift. And that's a really powerful thing. This eclipse is going to be really important for you if you have personal planets around 20 to 26 degrees of the mutable signs. So we're looking at Virgo, we're looking at Sagittarius, we're looking at Pisces, and we're looking at Gemini. Those are all the mutable signs. And so if you have things around there, it might be more powerful for you. It's also interesting that during this eclipse, Mercury is at 9 degrees Aries. And this is going to come up where the new moon solar eclipse happens in just 2 weeks. So that's interesting. And we also see the sun is in a Saturn-Neptune sandwich. That's got to be interesting there, right? Because Saturn kind of is that slowing down for us sometimes, getting clear on things. It can feel like an authority. And in Neptune's kind of more this dissolving, it's more this becoming one with everything. And they're both heading towards the end of the sign, their time in this sign. So this eclipse, we're already looking at letting go. These planets are getting ready to shift into Aries coming up here. So I think this might be a really powerful time. Spring's just around the corner. And one of the ways we can actually spur on this energy is actually doing some spring cleaning. So I think this would be a really great time to start going through things and saying, does this bring me joy or not? And moving through things. Where the eclipses fall in your own personal houses can give you more an idea. So if it's falling in your first house and your seventh house, there might be questions about, what are some old stories I have about relationships, how I can be an advocate for myself, or maybe I need to listen to my partner more, however that dynamic goes for you, depending on all the other things in your chart. Moving to the this next slide here. So this is going to be 2 weeks later, and this will be the new moon solar eclipse. It's a new moon because the sun and the moon are right next to each other. It's a dark sky. And this is happening at 9 degrees Aries. That's where Mercury just was 2 weeks prior. So this is usually what we consider more external. It's more things that kind of can happen around us in our daily life, because the sun is kind of our outward identity. And again, we just kind of released some stuff 2 weeks ago. So now this is kind of welcoming in things for a new start. And eclipses typically fall in patterns of every 18 years. So you can even think about what was going on in 2007, because sometimes you see themes repeated or things that might come up from the past. Moving next into Mercury going retrograde, this will be March 15th, and it will be at 9 degrees Aries. And this is going to end April 7th, and he's going to go back all the way to 26 degrees Pisces. So there's a lot of movement between Aries and Pisces, personal planets as well as the outer planets. So if you're feeling like I'm kind of starting something, but I don't really think I'm ready yet, it's a little bit confusing, totally normal. And when planets are in retrograde, this is a great time. Mercury retrograde is reflection, reevaluation, reviewing things. And there's a great phrase by Suzanne Giesemann, and she often says, "Isn't that interesting?" as a way to pause and to generate reflection. And so basically, when we go inward with Mercury, you want to think before you speak. You want to reread your emails, making sure you have plenty of time at the airport, double checking your tickets, just little simple things that when we get into a rush, we can kind of have things fall through the cracks. So just being aware that this is a really good time just to kind of dot your I's and cross your T's, that kind of a thing. And especially with, the eclipses in Virgo and Pisces with the nodes in those signs, this is a great time to pay attention to detail, because it's kind of slowing things down enough that you kind of really see with that clear vision and really picking out the really important things and prioritizing stuff. So having these personal planets in retrograde during Pisces season, I think it's really nice to kind of listen to ourselves, develop our intuition. Then the sun is going to enter Aries. We're going to have Aries season. So right now we're finishing up Pisces season. We're in the Pisces season. And this is wonderful for connecting to that which connects all of us, this consciousness idea, and kind of dreaming things. And when the sun is shifting into Aries, this is kind of starting something fresh, desire or courage to begin something new. Aries really is here to learn courage. When you're up against stressful things, that's when you realize, oh, I can actually do this. And it pushes you and makes you better, it makes you stronger. And it's really a great time to manifest and set goals, taking charge of your dreams, springtime planting those seeds, staking a claim, being comfortable taking up space, getting your fires burning again. So kind of feeling this ingress too is a time of a cosmic restart, as spring always is for us as we start that new season. And then the last really interesting thing is that Neptune is going to shift into Aries. So a little bit about Neptune. Neptune takes 165 years for it to seemingly orbit the Earth. We know nothing orbits the Earth, but from the geocentric perspective as an astrologer, it's 165 years. And the last time it was discovered in 1846. The last time Neptune was in Pisces was from 1847 to 1862. Our current Neptune cycle started in 2012. The last time Neptune was in Aries was from 1861 to 1875. And the Civil War was from 1861 to 1865. So there was a battle over slavery, what was just, fighting for equality. And there's also this rise of spiritualism, which I think is really interesting, and new religious movements. there was kind of a new way to seek mystical and metaphysical ways of being in the world. And as Neptune shifts into Aries in 2025, it will stay there until 2039. 0 degrees Aries is the start of the zodiacal belt, and it is considered part of the world axis. This is a very important point within the zodiac, within our understanding of astrology. So Neptune is the great dissolver. It can sometimes make you feel like you're in a fog. It might make you really struggle to have a grip on reality in some ways. It can also be a point of where we lose things or surrender things because there's a greater understanding we need to have. Neptune's also associated with dreams and intuition, definitely the subconscious. It can also bring an incredible sensitivity and imagination and creativity and compassion. So with Neptune shifting into Aries, putting this together, we can think about spiritual warriors. We can think about advocating for spirituality and enlightenment. This could be maybe a lot of people having a spiritual awakening, because all this time with Neptune and Pisces, things like, mediumship and intuition and astrology and all these kind of like pseudo-sciencey things have really been more prominently featured. There's apps for astrology now. Would you ever have thought that's possible in like the 1980s? I mean, it's fascinating. So I feel like the collective has been prepped for this. And now with Neptune shifting to Aries, it's that courage to explore the transcendental. It could be a collective urge to break free from old patterns or traditions, because sometimes Aries can feel kind of like that masculinity. And so really considering that creativity and innovation and encouraging you to be the explorer of your own connection to source through spirituality. We could also even say intuitive action. People are getting really curious about consciousness. So I really encourage people to have like your own experiences, because nothing is more obvious than when you're experiencing something yourself in some way. On the downside, there could be conflicts regarding misinformation or distortions of the truth or confused communications. We need to watch idealizing things or having certain beliefs about system that are kind of misguided, or maybe even like toxic masculinity. That could be one of the things that we could see. And we know that the year of the snake is this year in the Chinese calendar. So it's also an opportunity to kind of shed our skins and start something new, maybe doing different structures. So leaving behind the old with these eclipses and then embracing something that works better. And, resistance to change can be absolutely exhausting. So it's just not that productive. And when we look at the first half of 2025, we've just had Pluto shift into Aquarius, which is the farthest of the modern planets as far as our relationship to it. And the node shifted from Aries and Libra to Pisces and Virgo last month, in January. And then Neptune shifting into Aries. Saturn's going to shift into Aries in May. Jupiter's going to shift into Cancer, and then that's in June, and then Uranus will shift into Gemini in July. So there's a lot of these outer planets that spend anywhere from 2.5 years to 100 and, Neptune's 165 years, and then Pluto's 248 years. A lot of these outer planets that are shifting, and they're going from earthy water signs to fire and air, which is really, really interesting. And that second half of 2025, we're going to have some interesting supportive aspects between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And I want to talk really quickly about Saturn and Neptune being together. So February 20th of 2026 is when they're actually going to meet, Saturn and Neptune, at 0 degrees Aries, 45 minutes. And they'll be within a 2-degree orb of each other from May of 2025 until March of 2026. And so that could be the signs that will be affected by this are people who are within like 28 degrees of the mutable signs up to 2 degrees of the cardinal. So we're looking at Pisces and Aries, Gemini and Cancer, Virgo and Libra, and then Sagittarius and Capricorn. These two planets, Saturn and Neptune, they meet up every 36 years or so, but this is a really interesting time because of everything else that's happening within the cosmos. So it can kind of feel like a brand new possibility. There could be some disillusionment and discovery of something to believe in. There could be like these ands, or kind of things that are kind of like these juxtapositionings that can happen. There could be like an indeterminate reality or virtual reality, especially with Pluto and Aquarius, and AI has really been on the rise. Saturn is dealing in facts and truths, and then Neptune's kind of like a fog or a projection. So Saturn's going to help Neptune kind of fact check and be grounded a little bit more. And then Neptune's going to kind of question the certainty of Saturn. There's nothing more interesting than someone who's absolutely convinced in just one thing and they've lost that peripheral vision to learn something new or have a different perspective on things. And so we can think about religion and faith versus science and truth. So I personally feel like science and like the metaphysical, the religious, these different ways we understand things that we can have personal experiences with, but not quite quantitate in a double-blind randomized controlled placebo trial or certain scientific experiments. I think there's going to be more of a blending or understanding of things coming together with this Saturn and Neptune, and then shifting everything from that Pisces to Aries. So one of the things I recently listened to, it was Alex Ferrari on his Next Level Soul podcast. He had a woman named Cheryl Page on, and she's kind of like this scientist, but also kind of a mystic. I love her. She's really, really interesting. And she talked about serotiny. Now, this is why I have the pine cone on the slide. So these types of trees hold on to their seeds. So like the cones themselves have this really thick layer of resin. It's that sticky stuff when you touch the pine cones. And they wait for an environmental trigger. And one of the most common triggers for these types of trees are a natural fire, which can happen every 50 to 150 years. So trees have evolved to resist high heat due to lightning over millions of years. And so they've incorporated that resiliency into how they reproduce. So in serotinous conifers, the seeds are sealed shut with this really thick coating of resin. And when the temperature gets to 122 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, it sort of melts the resin, and these scales kind of open up. And you think about like the sci-fi movie Alien, when like the things crinkle out. It's like, it's not like that, but it's just interesting how there's like this melting process that happens. And the seeds are so deep within these scales, they're protected from the fire. So they're actually, they're ready to be blown away. And what the fire does is it basically raises all of the different plants around that tree, so there's less competition, there's more light because the organic material is now gone, so there's light, there's the nutrients from the ashes. So basically I'm bringing this up because I feel like Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries has this dissolving effect on what is holding us together to kind of release something deeper within us to repopulate the new soil. I don't know about you, but it kind of feels like right now everything's burning around us. And, Pluto goes into Aquarius. One of the things Pluto can do is like burn things down to the studs. So it kind of feels like in this high heat environment, we weren't left without nothing. We have these seeds of amazingness within each of us and within the community that we're going to melt now. We're going to release this brand new, or this new seed into the world that hopefully can grow into something amazing. And so basically I just want to leave you with that neat thing about serotiny, because there's all these different levels of evolution that all these amazing organisms on Earth have done. And I kind of feel like if we take the approach of all these things that are happening recently are there to catalyze us. They're there to help us have the strength and the courage to move forward and take more of an interest in consciousness, or things that can help us grow and help each other as a collective, I think, as well. So I want to say thank you to the Wholeness Network for having me on for the month of March. And I want to wish you a very happy spring and all the best to you. So have a fabulous, fabulous time, and I will see you next month. Okay, bye.
When most people are asked what they want, they will answer, I want to be happy. But happy takes practice. And that's what the Wholeness Library is all about. So check it out free at thewholenessnetwork.com.